if we were to ban all so-called gender affirmation procedures, we were to ban all of them for everybody, which we should, and this should happen on the federal level. And then if you claim, well, that's a violation of rights, whose rights are being violated?
The people who have their healthcare taken away. That's it, right? Because yeah, we're saying there's a different class of civil rights. There are rights for people, and then there are no rights for other people. And again, it's based on things that they cannot control. It's the way they were born. So all of a sudden, it's like, we're going to take your healthcare away, but not cis folks. Cis folks still get healthcare. Yep, you were lucky enough to be born cis, so good for you. You get healthcare. Everyone else, no healthcare for you. It's got to be weird if you're looking at geopolitics from a singular view of, hey, why is it that so many people globally are using queer folk, LGBTQ plus people, as not only a wedge issue, but the dividing cultural discussion of our time, especially for queers, because queers are on the other side of that. And while both liberals and conservatives are basically using their very existence for political points, talking points in both directions, by the way. The phenomenon has been given a name. It's called the thin pink line, and you can see it happening globally. There are entire movements being done by, say, Christian nationalists and Christian fascists in the United States to heavily fund religious fanatical movements in other countries like Uganda and get them to pass very draconian laws against gay people there. While at the same time, there are movements for the liberalization by Democrats and, again, U.S. imperial forces and using the fact that certain countries are not pro-LGBTQ plus as a definitional excuse to say that you are actually standing up and fighting for civil rights when you are actually invading other countries and demanding that they adhere to your strict specificity on what exactly a democratic country can be. You see it happening in both directions. And it's obviously for people who happen to be LGBTQ plus, it's very scary, confusing. And a lot of times this is why you'll see a lot of queer folks, sometimes in the United States or in Canada, align with liberal movements because the liberals aren't openly advocating for their deaths, right? At this point, there's enough of an acceptance of LGBTQ plus people, especially amongst the corporate world, that you all know it. It's all a thing. It's rainbow washing, the corporatization of pride, all this kind of stuff. But there's other countries that are passing very draconian laws and very evil and malicious laws towards queer people. And one of those countries is Russia right now. And there's a reason why the far right, and we'll just say Christian fascist, as well as a whole bunch of extremist groups globally, are praising it and aligning themselves with Putin, World War Z, all this kind of stuff. There's a reason why you'll have extremists like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Walsh and stuff like that sing praises about Putin's regime. Whereas like most people would be, from a rational perspective, like, but no. Putin's been very bad. From even if you want to take a big step back, all right, let's just try and forget about the geopolitics for a couple seconds here and look at this from a, hey, you know how the Noam Chomskys of the world are saying that this was actually the United States that did this war, that this was the United States that provoked Putin into doing this invasion and all this kind of stuff. Really bizarre way of, you know, looking at the world as if the United States is the only potential global actor. But sure, Putin had the ability to prevent NATO expansion into Ukraine simply by annexing Crimea. Like that was enough for most other, NATO allies to not want to involve themselves directly for the same reasons they're doing right now. They don't want to potentially provoke a world war or a conflict in which, again, if there is some kind of military action that takes place while there is a direct military conflict between these two nations, we could get pulled into it. You try and dance that thin line on the side where you try to do a proxy war, or support them militarily, or do whatever it is. But at the same time, that would have been enough to justify, hey, by the way, I don't think there's going to be an expansion. Now, once Putin has done what he's done, holy fuck, Putin has done more to further the growth and expansion of NATO in my lifetime than any other person. It was a calculated mistake that he made. You can objectively look at this, even like analysis, like American Prestige, who are very far left in geopolitical analysis of world affairs. They will be the first to tell you they're shocked. Not only did he do this, but that it's gone as poorly as it has. It seems to be, in their assessment, a COVID misstep. Like many people, you become increasingly more paranoid and more internalized during this global shutdown pandemic that was the COVID pandemic. It's over now, don't worry, we got rid of it, it's all good. To do something like this, which now has pretty much had the decided ire of the entire world condemning the actions, and even the countries that are allies are doing so very carefully and being like, well, we want to say both sides may be entered in conflict, but we would like to just have the best deal for energy at any given time, so we're going to stay on the sidelines. Yeah, by most metrics, it's been devastating. It's been devastating to the Russian military, the Russian morale, their legions, like the numbers, the amount, it's like it's been human fucking meat shredders. And maybe they weren't expecting the Ukrainians to be fighting back with as much ferocity as they are, or they didn't expect the West and all these other allies to continuously pour military machines and stuff like that into the country. I'm not sure where the miscalculation went. Either way, has been a disaster, an absolute disaster. So at this point, you'll still see people like Matt Walsh cozying up to Putin and his agenda.
But in any case, here's Russia's latest alleged sin. This is from CNN. The Russian State Duma, or lower house of parliament, has voted in favor of a new law banning nearly all medical help for transgender people, including gender reassignment surgery, in a raft of new anti-LGBTQ laws in Russia. The bill, which had its third and final reading on Friday, prohibits doctors from conducting gender reassignment surgeries except in cases related to treating congenital physiological anomalies in children. It also restricts registry offices from amending official documents based on medical certificates of gender change. The law must still be approved by the Federation Council and signed by President Vladimir Putin before it comes into force. Amendments made for its third reading included disqualifying individuals who have undergone gender changes from becoming adoptive parents or guardians, as well as the possibility of annulling a marriage if one or both spouses undergo a gender change and update their civil status records. Now, I mean, this is all great stuff. Of course, the claim that Russia has banned nearly all medical help.
This is all great stuff. Good job.
For trans people is false. That's not what the article describes. It's not as if trans people are not allowed to get like heart surgery or something. What they have banned or are trying to ban is sexual mutilation.
So yeah, nonsense. But yeah, no, they are completely restricting the healthcare of trans people. Trans people who, again, this is something that every major medical association in the United States agrees upon, that gender affirming care in many cases can be life-saving for people who need it. And those who get it have very low rates of regret. And so once you remove that completely and you're like, yes, you are now going to have to live as the gender that you do not associate with. Again, try and put yourself in the mentality of that. If you are like myself, a cis person, the very idea that all of a sudden the government is going to pass some legislation that's going to turn me into a woman, I would be fucking horrified. I would be horrified to learn that I'm now about to be turned into a woman against my will. That, like, again, I would experience massive gender dysphoria. I would have a lot of fucking health concerns and problems from this, and especially a lot of mental health problems as a result of them forcing me to do that. That's what's being done in the opposite direction.
Of people of all ages, which is exactly the correct thing to do. Okay, as I have always argued,
this is what's important by the story. And this is why people have been screaming this. And hopefully this will be the end of this debate amongst the LGB Alliance and the Gays Against Groomers, aka the hate groups, where a handful of, like, you know, white gay people, white gay men mostly, are hoping that, like, this is going to hopefully win them some favor amongst the fascist crowd by suddenly selling out the rest of the alliance, shall we say. They're not stopping at trans kids. They're not stopping at trans people. It's always going to go further. There is no compromising with fascists. They're not interested in compromise. They aren't interested in a parlay. They don't want to see what is the reasonable limits to their extremism. They want to eliminate trans people from existing. And LGBTQ plus, yes, the entirety of it all. Anything they see as abnormal, as perverse. They even don't like asexuals. They'll even come forward and be like, well, asexuality is a perversion. It's a perversion of what is supposed to be normal, which is sexuality. Sexuality is normal, but it's also sinful, and you should hate yourself for it, and you should only engage in it if you are married, and then afterwards still feel shame. Shame and, you know, cry after you're done poking your penis through the hole in the sheet or whatever it is that you have to do.
Yes, we start by trying to protect the kids because they are the most vulnerable, the most innocent. It is the most evil, the most egregious to butcher or mutilate children who have no capacity whatsoever to consent to this or to understand what's happening to them. And so we begin by trying to protect them first. And that's what a decent society.
We begin. This is the start. Yes, we're coming for the kids, because this is an easy wedge issue that we can suddenly get in front of, lie a bunch, and then say, hey, by the way, we're just trying to prevent genital mutilation of children. But that's not where this is headed. That's not the goal. They're very clear about this. And everyone who's on the sidelines, the LGBs of the world, again, mostly white queer folk who are just like, well, we'll be the good ones. We'll be the pick-me's. We'll be the ones that are like, well, hey, yes, the T, it's obviously that's part of the rainbow that we don't accept. Things went too far. We don't know why we added gender expression, all that stuff. We're just going to stay safely on this side. Please don't come for us. Look what's happening in Italy. Right now, the fascist party of Italy, which is the ruling party currently, they are directly going after lesbian women. Yes, cis lesbian women in Italy are having their children taken away from them because they are seen as depraved and unable to safely raise kids because of their depravity, being their homosexuality. So that very instance where it's like, well, but they're going to protect us, right? If we sell out to the fascists, if we basically sell trans people out to the fascists, they'll stop with trans folk. Of course they fucking won't. This is their entry point, not their ending. This is the start.
Society does. It's what decent people do. You protect the kids first. But that's not the end of it. So kids should be the first ones we protect. They should not be the only people we protect. And all people, in fact, should be protected from doctors who want to profit off of, their confusion, profit off the confusion of their patients, the mental illnesses of their patients, and butcher and mutilate them, and sell them surgeries on the basis of false promises. That should be legal for everyone. And as I'm always explaining, it is not that we are banning, I'm not saying that adult trans people should be banned from getting these surgeries. That is the effect, right? That if the surgeries are banned, if you're an adult trans person, you can't get them. But that's not where the law is targeted. It's about banning doctors from doing this to people. That's where the ban sets in. And yes, if you ban doctors, that means that they can't do it to anyone.
He's basically explaining very simply how this all works. It's like, just so you know, this is a pretty effective entry point. Look how it's working in Russia. We could do the same thing here. We just basically need to ban the procedures altogether for everybody. We'll say that it's for the kids. That's the easy entry point, as they've shown to be successful there. But then the benefit is going to be that it just bans all of it. Yeah, we can get rid of all of it at once.
And that's also, if you say that it's a violation of rights, if we were to ban all so-called gender affirmation procedures, if we were to ban all of them for everybody, which we should, and this should happen on the federal level. And then if you claim, well, that's a violation of rights, whose rights are being violated? I mean, the people performing the surgeries are
the people who have their healthcare taken away. That's it, right? Because we're saying there's a different class of civil rights. There are rights for people, and then there are no rights for other people. And again, it's based on things that they cannot control. It's the way they were born. So all of a sudden, it's like, we're going to take your healthcare away, but not cis folks. Cis folks still get healthcare. You were lucky enough to be born cis, so good for you. You get healthcare. Everyone else, no healthcare for you.
the doctors. So you're saying they have a right to do that to people? They have a right to take someone who's confused, take a man who's confused, who thinks he's a woman, even though he's not, a man who believes that his salvation, his happiness can be found in, mutilating his genitalia so that it allegedly will vaguely resemble that of a female genitalia, but will never actually be female genitalia.
I feel like you've thought about this a lot by now. These are things that I don't have to trouble myself with during the course of the day. I'm not sitting there just being like, yeah, it's utterly bizarre to me how a man would want to take a fully functioning penis that he has, a glorious penis, by the way, and then inverse that penis and try to change it into something else, something grotesque and pleasure-seeking so other people can then pleasure themselves using his inverse penis. This is a Wendy's. Like, do you want food or what? What's going on here?
We'll never have the function of female genitalia. You're saying that the doctors have the right to exploit this person. The entire gender reassignment industry is built on exploitation and abuse. The fact that the people who are being exploited don't realize it doesn't make it okay. That's how exploitation always.
So is that why they have, is that how you're going to start combating the fact that the overwhelming majority, almost all people who have gender affirming care, basically say that it was a good decision and it's one in which they're very happy with the results of? Like, okay, there's not a lot of other things that have like 96, 97% basically not only efficacy rates, but satisfaction rates amongst patients in healthcare. That's true. That's a very high rate to describe. Oh, they're all brainwashed. Ah, that's why. Yeah. They're all hopped up in all those hormones. It's like a drug. Once they start getting those hormones, suddenly they feel way better about themselves. It's basically, they're a whole bunch of, you know, addicts. They're all addicts for transitioning. That's what they are.
Okay, there's always coercion with exploitation. And that doesn't make it okay, obviously. So this should be, this certainly is the ultimate goal. And this is something that Russia has clearly gotten right.
This is the ultimate goal. This is what they're all fighting for. This is why they're constantly pushing the same fucking draconian things over and over and over and trying to normalize them, because this is not something that's up for debate amongst the scientific community. Again, that was an old debate that's been going on for a while now, but now they're pretty united in understanding how, yes, gender affirming care actually does have incredible benefits and can be life-saving in certain cases. And so that's actually something that should be discussed between doctors and patients, and in the case of children, doctors, patients, and their parents. That's it. There's no Matt Walshes that are necessary to be part of this conversation. Again, this is not an argument you hear for other forms of healthcare coming from the right. The right are not trying to prevent children from getting their appendixes surgically removed. They're not trying to stop children from getting circumcision. They're not trying to prevent that. They're not fighting that. They're not spending every day, even though over half of all men in the United States get circumcised. Yes, you can call that genital mutilation, but they don't care about that one. No, that one doesn't count. What they care about distinctly is people who happen to be getting gender affirming surgery. And again, it doesn't happen for kids. Kids don't get gender affirming surgeries. They don't. Kids get affirmation. Different names, pronouns. Sometimes you grow your hair long. You see how that helps their mental health, that if it improves it dramatically, as it seems to do in the cases where people actually are experiencing gender dysphoria, then you can start talking about different things when your child is about to go through puberty. Then that's going to be a different conversation. Again, for the doctor, the patient, and the parents. Not Matt Walsh. Not me. This is for them to talk about. Yeah.
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback, because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
Thank you kindly to our Lord and Saviors Peyton L. Just and Xander Corvus. Without you, we are nothing. And now, a shout out to our Knights of the Square Table. Amazing Flesh, Anna Loves Riley, Adrian McCarthy, DM Rivera, Doug Cady, Everything Important, Hegbard Celine, Izzy Solidarity, La Media Panza, Matthew Scarborough, Multimondi, Nettle, Omni, Peanut Butter Blonde, Political Papi, Quiet 185, Rachel K, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Kubi, Cernicus, Spinach Monster, Stellar Vision, Sebastian Demmel, Thomas, Trevbot EXE, Lucidry, Words Greenwood, Cheryl Alvarez, Tony Perkins, Thomas, O'Pecker, Travis McClinton, and Victoria Bell. Thank you so much. And a huge shout out to all the other people who make this entire show possible. Without you, it would not exist. If you can support us, please go to patreon.com/theserfs, and even $1 can help unlock all of the little goodies and help make this show entirely possible.